making your sound better.
Yo, yo. What is up, everybody? This is Josh with WA Production here with another week of our track feedback slash live production session. Excited to be back here. It is the final month of 2020. I wasn't sure we'd ever get here, and I'm still not sure we'll ever get out of 2020, but we've made it to December, so that's an accomplishment for all of us, I think. Anyway, so today we're going to do what we've been doing for the last few weeks, which is I'm going to dive into a quick production session and go over a topic that I've chosen to discuss with you all today. And then after that, I'll dive into the track feedback session. So first and foremost, you all need to be a part of our Discord server. The link is above my head. If you go there, you can submit tracks via the track feedback channel. And I will randomly choose tracks from there in the second portion of our feedback session today to review and to play live and to give you my constructive criticism or praise on. And then before that, I'm going to go through a little bit about a topic of my choosing today in terms of production tips and tricks. And if you have questions or comments or anything you want me to discuss, please send them in the live stream Q&A channel on our Discord, and I will try and address them live for you. So, yes, Silver Venom, it is the 33rd of December 2020 soon. I'm sure that this is gonna feel like the longest month ever, but hopefully we turn the corner in 2021. But anyway, all right, guys. So today I'm gonna dive into Ableton and go over something that I have noticed with a lot of beginning and not even just beginning, but just producers in general that I think you guys could get some help with here. So the topic for today is build-ups, and not all of you are doing traditional EDM, but most of you are doing some form of EDM. And even if you're not, getting good at transition moments in a song is super important no matter what genre you're in. And so I'm going to start just by kind of showing you what I see as a common issue in boring buildups, and then show you some techniques for improving that. So I put a couple things together here. This is what I hear in like 90% of amateur producers' EDM tracks, and this is what their buildups sound like. All right. Honestly, pretty boring and not very realistic. And so in 2012, or 2010, when Big Room was becoming a thing, like maybe this was okay. But I feel like these days, you really got to take it to the next level and make it a bit more interesting than that and a bit more realistic. Something that a mentor of mine said a long time ago that kind of stuck with me is like, you'll never see a drummer get up on stage and pull out one stick and just go, ba, 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 and play this beat. I mean, it's just not a real thing. So right off the bat, you're creating something that just isn't found in like real music. And so my suggestions here are to be a little bit more creative. So that can mean, firstly, you don't want everything to play at the same velocity. That is extremely unrealistic and something that would never happen in real life. You can do this with audio. I like to do it in the drum rack. I mean, you can do it however you want, but you want to have some sort of a velocity rhythm. So this is a common one, and it can be used for hats or snares or anything of the like. It's not the end-all be-all, but listen to the difference. So you hear how it syncopates the velocity there, and it becomes a bit more natural, like a little bit more groove. Ba 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 ba. I mean, you can do that throughout the track. It's very common to have the first hit be the hardest hit, the second be the third hardest hit, the third be a little bit in between, and then the fourth be the quietest. So it creates that kind of ba 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 ba. And you can do that in the more busy parts too. Like, let's do it over here. I mean, doesn't that sound better than this? Not that, sorry. This. I mean, it just sounds more human. It sounds more real. So what I will say is that in some genres, in some styles, yeah, you don't want velocity changes. Like, I get it. Let's say you're doing a trap track. Trap hats are often just one velocity 100%. That's how they get those trap roll, the hat rolls and all of that. But typically, if you're doing hi-hats and you're doing it in a genre that isn't super electronic or isn't trap, honestly, even house and stuff, you usually syncopate. You don't want just hats. I'm going to silence this real quick. I don't want hats just playing like this. Oops. Like this. Or, let's do it more than that, like this. You would really, and this, this is not even, we're not even talking buildups anymore. This is just general drum programming, but, you would more want it like this probably. So anyway, that's just a general tip for drum programming. But getting back to buildups. So we've got our build up here. So now we've at least syncopated the velocity here. Now you can also, and I think somebody just asked in the YouTube chat, how about swing 16? I mean, so you can also adjust the actual rhythm of where they play. So if you want it to sound even more human, you can mess around with the timing of it and not have it fully on the grid. Like maybe that's too much, you want to be kind of, really fine tuning with this. Otherwise it can start to sound offbeat, but that's just one way you can have it play a little ahead of time, a little bit in front. I would suggest not doing it too much and not doing it on all four within a bar, because then it just sounds offbeat. You have to have something that's anchoring you to the grid. So having the 1 and the 3 play on the grid while the 2 and the 4 maybe play a little late or a little early can sound pretty good. But again, use that with caution, but it gives it a way more natural sounding vibe. Anyway, so I'm not going to do too much of that right now because that'll take me more time to really dial in the sound that I want. But that's just another tip for sure. Thank you for bringing that up, Wux. So once you've got your some drum there, I like to start maybe not just with a snare. Let's create a more interesting pattern with some different sounds. I'm gonna make it so I can hear them. Okay. Make sure these are I wanted the kicks to be the same velocity, at least in this case. And then, we'll slowly bring in more elements as we get going here. Okay. So not my best thing ever, but let's just add in some other stuff here. Okay, so all right, so it's starting to sound like a real drum pattern sort of here. So, that's a little bit more interesting to start with, but yeah, you want it to turn into an EDM build. I get it. So like you can slowly bring in, something that sounds like this, but like, start off kind of quiet. And then, keep it moving up a little bit. And so, I mean, you can do something that like that, or you can, if you really don't need all these other drums, you can just start off with a more interesting drum pattern. You know, I'm gonna start this over. Let's do it over here, and let's say we do just want to use our snare. Make this louder. Dun. So there's just, I mean, you can do all sorts of different patterns, but it doesn't need to be ba 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 ba. I mean, you can do something way more interesting, and then, you know, maybe bring in for the last part. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. But you know, you can bring in your more traditional EDM pattern in the last part here. Okay, so I think you get the idea of the snares. I mean, I think you just, it becomes a little bit too basic when all you're doing is that. People are so used to that. It's like, is your song going to stand out at this point? Probably not if you do it that way. So I'm going to come back to this original beat that we were making here. All right, the next thing I'm going to go over is layering and doing different sounds. So I think a lot of people, they do this, or they create their basic drum beat and add one riser and they think they're done. That's honestly, especially if you're trying to make a big sounding build, which most of the time you probably are, you know, that's not enough. You know, I think you kind of often forget that you can layer different stuff together. So one tool that I really like is the riser. You can do this in basically any synth, but this one is specifically designed to make riser sounds. So, you know, it makes it super easy just to like kind of choose the kind of riser. Let's say I want to do a pitch riser, do a basic sweep. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, that's gonna be too short. Okay, so that's one layer. Let's call that a layer. And then let's just find, you know, some other riser sounds. Kind of boring. I think I got a cool one here from Cashmere. All right, we can throw this on here. And now I want to use something that has a bit of rhythm. So let's find one that has like some cool pattern or something. That could work, maybe. Oh, that's cool. Okay, and so here's another trick, is that a lot of times you just throw ones, all right, I've got an 8-bar riser or 8-bar build-up. I'm just going to use 8-bar builds. So you can use, like, it's cool to bring in an 8-bar one, a 4-bar one, a 1-bar sweep, you know, something like that, so that it constantly is adding new things to it. So let's try this. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, so maybe a little crazy with too much rhythm going on, but you get the idea. And then I'm going to add one other something here. Let's... Okay, so you can get the idea. There's too much going on. I haven't EQ'd any of it or anything like that. But then you can, okay, let's pan it. This one I like in the middle because it's so big. This guy, let's have this happen like way out to the right. And then this one, All right. So, not the greatest mix or anything, but I'm just trying to give you the general idea. Like, you shouldn't stop at one snare and one thin, white noise sweep. That's just, usually not going to be enough if you want to create like a big sounding build. So that's that portion. But then, the other part is the effects. And so you want typically, somebody said, only samples. I didn't just do a sample. This is a synth right here. I'm just trying to be fast, guys. I'm not, I don't have hours to spend. I would not ever make a build probably in 20 minutes, which is what I'm going to do today. I'd spend more time on it, but just trying to give you the idea. So, jumping back into now I've grouped these, and you might have different groups. You might have a drum group and a bass group and an effects group or whatever, but for this purpose, I've just put them all together. So, I've got one tool I really like is Endless Smile. Typically, you want to not have a ton of bass right before your drop. A lot of times I hear you guys have tracks where the sub is just as loud in the right before the drop as it is in the drop. And so what's cool with Endless Smile is it does a few different things all together. A lot of times what I would want to do is filter out the lows, maybe filter out the highs as well, maybe add a reverb that comes in and it just makes it sound bigger and wider and washed out, maybe add a delay that does the same thing, and maybe add some compression to really just get it really tight and then have it explode in the drop. So what's cool with Endless Smile is that it does all of that. Don't worry, I don't work for Dial-Life or any of that, but they are cool guys, and this is a cool plugin. So this just, you can automate the intensity of it, and this guy gets happy or sad. And basically, but again, you don't need to go out and buy Endless Smile to do this. You can do this with a mix of an auto filter and a reverb and a delay. I mean, it's not, I just like it because it's all in one. But anyway, so you can choose any of these presets and it'll do some combination of those things I just mentioned for you. And I usually recommend not going to 100%. I think that it basically becomes almost silent at that point. Usually I end up at like 60 or 70. We'll see. It just depends on what I'm going for. But this, if we do it, let's see how it sounds. See, so it filters it out. It gives you that delay. Let's see if we did it at 100%. Yeah, so maybe you want that. It just depends on your song, like what kind of effect you want. Usually what I'll do, though, is before we get to the drop, I'll bring it back down to 0 so that it just isn't like whooshing throughout the whole. I just might mute the track or something. It just depends on the song and what I'm doing. Am I going to have a drum fill or a vocal right before the drop, or what am I going to do with that? It all, you make those decisions as you go. Anyway, so that would be how I would handle that. Hold on, guys. Oh, my camera just totally did something weird. Let me fix that. Anyway, you can still see me. I'm just not any longer just with a green screen. So anyway, so that would be the gist of what I would focus on as far as, you want to have it layer, you want to have it be more interesting than just a straight 4 on the floor snare. I mean, you want to have some more intriguing elements to that. Otherwise, your build isn't going to prepare you for that awesome drop that you're gonna have. It's just gonna sound boring, and then you focus so much on the drop and you forget to prepare the listener for the drop. And so that's a really huge part of it, and I think that it's a big struggle for a lot of earlier on beginner producers, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna stop it there. I think that I've belabored the point enough for today, but that'll be it. And I suggest that if you have any questions, submit them on the live stream Q&A, and I will try and answer them before the end of the day. But now I'm going to, man, my camera really doesn't want to fix this. But anyway, not to worry. I'm going to go in and listen to some of these tracks for you all. So Um, let us begin. By the way, the track you were listening to at the end of the intro was from our Transfer Ascension pack. Before that was our new Techno pack that's out as well. So lots of cool stuff. And we're going to start off. Okay, SoundCloud getting ahead of me. But we're going to start off today with this Lucas and Steve remix by Mr. Reina.
Met you by the ocean near the stand, we got our alcohol. 2 shots and a beer was just enough to get us drunk. Walking down the shore, falling asleep to endless evening talks. Young and wild and reckless, we were trying to change the world. But do memories ever die? Do our memories ever die? I wrote you letters to remember the summer days, no lonely nights, the time I used to call you mine. Now every cold December, I think about the way you dressed. I wish I took a photograph, but I know these memories never die. Songs, singing along all the lyrics to all summer long. No responsibilities, just running wild on empty streets. And if you ask me, then I say it's the best that ever was. To remember the summer days, no lonely nights, the time I used to call you mine. Now every cold December, I think about the way you dressed. I wish I took a photograph, but I know these memories never die.
All right, Mr. Reina, Mr. Rohit, nice job. Thank you for submitting that. I think my camera's working now, so that's good. All right, so it's a good start. You've already released this. It has 7,000 plays. That's awesome. So just some tips for you to take into the future then. I don't expect you to go back and change this. But firstly, I think the mix overall needs a lot of work. I think that you have a lot of elements in the low mids, in the low mid area that is kind of, they're all just muddy and all over each other. Basically your bass and the guitar and the keys and stuff, they have a lot of low mid energy. So it's sounding a little muddy. Secondly, I think that your bass line isn't matching the chord progression correctly. I think you're going like, it's not off key, but it's not as good as it should be. Basically, it goes like ba ba na ba 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 ba. But the thing is that your chord progression doesn't go ba 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 like that. It actually goes to a third chord, and so your root note is just off. I think that your third chord's root note is the wrong note for the bass, and so it doesn't sound as compelling. It's also a little bit boring because you're playing basically you're basically only playing 2 bass notes for like the whole drop, and so it just is. It's just you're not taking it to the level where it's going to have an engaging, interesting chord progression and melody that's going to really make me want to keep listening over and over again. I think the chord progression it's just you can do a lot more. It's just kind of basic. And I think that to really stand out, I'm not saying make things more complicated. The last thing I'm saying is to put in more instruments. What I'm saying is to get more out of the instruments and elements that you have right now. So that would be making a more interesting rhythm in the chord progression, having your sounds be a little bit more complex. Right now, you've got a looped chord progression that is very short and very simple. I would make it a little bit more interesting. So those would be my main things. I think your kick kind of gets lost in the mix. I think, I'm not going to dive into every mix problem, but there's a lot of issues with the mix that would make it just sound more professional and sound better. So just keep making music, man. You're on the right track, and musically you're getting there. I think you just need to improve your production quality and improve your ability to hear things and think, okay, I need to make this more interesting and make this just have that extra something special to really make it stand out among the rest. So thank you for sending. Okay, next we have Line Work by Silver Venom. All right. I love that. That's really awesome. Nice job, man. So I'm going to be very specific with the things that I have to say about this one because I think you've done a really good job, and I think there's just a few things that I would really focus on to finish this one up. So I love the drops. I love the different sounds you have. I really like the reversed piano and stuff like that. I think you need to focus on these verse or breakdown sections, whatever you want to call it. I think your drums are too boring there. I think that they sound kind of alien to the song. You've got this song that's like really washed out, almost that, Drake, like filtered hip-hoppy sound. And then the drums are very dry and thin. So I think you need to kind of treat them in a similar way. Throw some reverb on that snare, make it sound like this. I mean, this is the kind of song where it sounds like it's being played in a cave, in a good way. I mean that in a good way, like in an underground cavern, and you've got some like darkness and cool stuff. I think that your snare just kind of sounds too bright and thin and just. So anyway, I would really just drop on a little bit of reverb on there and maybe some EQing to make it sound a little bit darker, maybe filter out some of the highs. You still want it to be prominent in the mix, but maybe take out a little bit of the brightness, and then maybe even add a little distortion, just give it a little bit of grittiness, add on like a redux or some sort of saturation to just make it crunchier. I think that would sound cool. And then I think, you could do I think in the drops you do a really good job. I think this is just a personal thing that I would do, but like maybe that like big synth, that like saw synth, whatever that is, maybe do a little bit of like tune automation, like in the second drop, maybe like have it go like, instead of just playing the note straight, have it like, wow, like do like a little bit of moving around or something cool, like super light, not anything complex, but just to give it a little bit of energy and some interesting sounds. That would be cool. And yeah, generally I would just really focus on these breakdown sections because I think they're missing a little something. And they are super quiet, so yeah, definitely bring those up in comparison with the drop. And this vocal here sounds good. See how thin that is? That's how, in my opinion, it should sound. But then you bring in this like baby vocal. You hear how much low end is in that baby vocal? Try and have it sound the same as the other one by high passing it or doing something. It's sounding, it makes it almost sound muddy in that part because it's got this like lot of mid low end frequency information in that vocal. So give it a high pass and have it sound thin, kind of like the other ones. I think it'll sound cleaner and more professional. But anyway, spend enough time on that. I really like that though. It's really great. So just fix a few things and you'll be on your way. That was really awesome. Okay, next we've got, and yes, I'm going out of order, guys. I will try and get to as many as I can, but I'm just going in a random order. So I've got Wux, Slow Down, Work in Progress. All right. Honestly, I don't have too much to say about that one. I think it's really good. I do think that um, some very small elements of the mix could use some work to really make me feel it more. I'd want to listen to it a couple more times before I gave you more detailed of an answer on that. I do like it a lot. I think that it sounds really good. I just think that like a really professional mix and master could make me feel that in my bones more, if that makes sense. But I think it's really good. I really like your rhythm of the bass in the drop. I mean, I think it's interesting. It's unique. I mean, I can't say it sounds exactly like another song I've heard before. And the production quality is great. The sound design is awesome. The drums fit the track well. I don't have too much to say. I mean, it's really good. I think that, if this is what you're doing right now, I think, 4, 5, 6 songs down the road, you're gonna be killing it. I mean, it's really good. So just keep at it and keep putting out music. And yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say. When a song's good, it's good. So nice job. All right, I've got Brainworm by Bone and Skin. Song's 3 years old and has 50,000 plays. Wow. All right, let's we'll see if I can give some feedback on it.
What's going on? They're trying to trick you. The words are in her brain. Back, yo. Back on it, on him 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 back, yo. Back. Here go the sound. Yo, back on it, here go the sound. Yo, back on it, on that. Yo, back on it, here go the sound. Yo, back. Back on it, on him back, yo. 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 Back. Here goes.
All right, so that's really good. I'm not sure. I'm gonna hope that whoever posted this, it's actually them, but I don't know. Anyway, it's a great track. I think my biggest thing here would be, I feel like, again, kind of what I was saying before, and maybe I want to listen on bigger speakers or whatever, but these are good headphones, and I think that sub just doesn't, I don't feel it as much as I should. I think that it's a little bit, it's not as beefy as I'd like it to be in a song like this, where it's such a huge part of the song. So that would be my main thing. I mean, the production quality and the sound design and the composition and everything here is awesome. So yeah, I don't have too much to say. I mean, and especially this song has been out for 3 years, so I'm not going to tell you to change anything. But yeah, I mean, I think that the sub just could really, in this kind of genre, that's so important. And it just, I just didn't feel it was as beefy as it should be. So anyway, moving right along, we are going to listen to Arts What is on your mind? Bit of a change of pace, probably.
What is on your mind? 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 Why you gotta be trying to be doing me like that? And you calling, you texting, you wanting this back. Why you gotta be trying to be doing me like that? Why you putting up an act? No, you won't get this back. No. What is on your mind? What is on your mind? What is on your mind? You wanting this back? What is on your mind? 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 Why you gotta be trying to be doing me like that? And you calling, you texting, you wanting this back. Why you gotta be trying to be doing me like that? Why you putting up an act? No, you won't get this back. No. What is on your mind? What is on your mind? What is on your mind? You wanting this back? What is on your mind? 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 What is on your mind?
Okay, so that's really, really good. I definitely have some comments, but overall, I really like the song. The vocals are awesome, both the male and the female. Really clean and awesome voices, and really catchy hook and catchy groove. So, firstly, I'll say that I think that your housey piano sound is a little too high in velocity and a little too thin. So what I mean by that is that a lot of times when people are producing, especially those who are newer, they play piano or program piano through a VST, and they have it at 100% velocity. And what you might not realize is that it just sounds unnatural a lot of the time. I very rarely am at 100% velocity, even when I'm having a part where I want it to be played as if I'm playing super hard on the keys. I'll maybe have it at like 70 or 60. My typical velocity just for normal piano is going to be like 20%, but it depends on the plugin and whatever you're using to make the piano sound. All I'm saying is that it sounds like your piano in the beginning here. So that's another kind of what I was saying earlier with the build, but this is for piano. It sounds like somebody is banging on the piano every time they play a chord. So firstly, I would tone that down a little bit. I'm not saying volume. There's a difference between volume and velocity. The velocity it makes it sound like they're playing really hard. Volume, you can adjust that after the fact to compare with the other elements in your instrument. But anyway, I would change that a little bit. And then also, again, you might want to syncopate that and have the volume change from chord to chord. Just so that slightly, not like crazy, but just so that it's not so fake sounding. It needs to sound a bit more natural. So that would be one part. And then the other part is it's very high pass. It sounds very thin. You may want to EQ that a little bit better. You definitely don't want a bunch of low end. I totally get why you did that. The bass, you don't want it to clash with that, but it sounds a little bit too much. You want to give it a little bit more body, a little bit more warmth, whether that's by just toning down the EQ or adding another layer below it or something, another piano. But that would be my tip for there. As far as the drop, I think your drums get a little bit lost. I think you kind of need to get them to sit better with your other elements, whether that's EQing your bass and your synths so that there's room for the kick, or by doing a little bit more side chaining or something like that. I think that that's important. Yeah, I think just in general there, I mean, you've got a really cool bass sound, you've got good drums. It's just that your bass and your synth and piano are all kind of playing in that low mid section, and they're kind of losing each other. So I would suggest kind of dialing in a little bit more with a fine-tooth comb of like where you want each element to sit in the mix, and not letting something else overlap it too much. Those would be my main things. I mean, really, composition wise and structure and the song itself are all really great. I just think getting it to sound professional as far as the mix is your next step, and maybe part of that is getting it to a professional mixing engineer. I don't know. You don't have to be amazing at everything. There's no rule that you have to do it all yourself. But anyway, nice job. I really like that. So keep sending your stuff in for sure. All right, really quick reminder to all of you and those of you who haven't been on before. Please do not submit more than once. I usually will skip you. This time I am not going to, but in future, if you send more than once, it's not really fair. So I am not going to listen to it in future, but this time, no worries. We got SOM Skio Project 6.
Nothing's like the first time, and when it ends, you try to find it all over again. Like something's missing when you are gone. It's just a feeling I can't overcome. You will be the end of me, you're the end of me. I know, I know, I know. You treat my heart so recklessly, yeah, it's hard to let you go, 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 go. Nobody's gonna love me like you. Nobody's gonna love me like you do. Nobody's gonna love me like you. Nobody's gonna love me like you do. When I sleep, these are you will be the end of me. You're the end of me. I know, I know, I know. To let you go, 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 go. Nobody's gonna love me like you. Nobody's gonna love me like you do. Nobody's gonna love me like you. Nobody's gonna love me like you do.
Okay, nice job. It's definitely got Potential here. I like the drop. I think that you do a good job with a pretty interesting melody, and it sounds nice. And I like the bounciness of it. I think your transitions need a bit of work. Like for example here.
Nothing's like the first.
Like it's not terrible, but when you just bring something, when you just cut so sharply like that and bring something in, I just think it could flow a little bit better, whether that's by filtering a bit beforehand or adding another riser or something that just prepares the listener for that to come. It doesn't need to, it can be subtle, but just doing something to make it a little bit less jarring, I think would be helpful. I think overall your mix needs a lot of work. I think that there are certain elements that are way too loud and certain elements that are just kind of too quiet. So that's something I would definitely focus on. And then I think there are parts that get a little repetitive. I think that you could do something a little bit more out the box with your rhythm and your pattern. I think that the first step in learning production is getting good at melody and chords and the sounds themselves and the notes. And the next step is to get good at creating things that are that the pattern is more out of the box rather than a chord that is kind of predictable, that hits on every quarter note or whatever it is. You start to create patterns that are a bit more interesting, and they don't need to be super complicated and turn into something crazy, but like something that isn't quite the same as everything else. So I think that where you just need to make more music and you'll keep getting better at that. I think you'll start to recognize when things, you kind of could finish here, but if you did this one extra step, it would be a lot better. And so I think for this one, just work on cleaning up the mix. I think that there are some things that it's a little thin, like in your drop. I think it's just kind of missing a little something. But that doesn't mean throw a bunch of stuff into the track. I think that a lot of producers, they think the more the better, and then it just becomes a mess. So don't overdo it, but I think that you're on the right track and you'll keep getting better, but it's definitely a good start. So nice job. All right, so now we've got another one here. If I can drag it over, we've got For You by Bartek. I'm just going to leave it at Bartek. I'm going to definitely butcher your last name, so sorry about that. Okay, let's see.
Tired, and I say, darling, it's alright. The sun will come out before we're old, we'll get it right. And we were falling like stars, and there was hope within your eyes. But we were younger then, we'd never be apart. We're just when you can't touch the ground and your head is underwater, I would dive in for you before our life's a roller coaster, I cannot answer. We're just people, we're just people.
Okay, so the vocals quite good. I like that a lot. I think overall, I mean, you've got good production skills, and it's very musical. Um, so firstly, I think in your drop, your side chain is a little bit. The timing is not ideal. In progressive house, you've got typically a very thin kick. It's not a very bassy kick because you let the bass do the work. Unless, there's some ways you can do different things. But anyway, in this song in particular, that's the case. And it's not a long kick. It's a pretty short kick. That's typically the case. It's not trap where you got some like long kick or something playing. But here you've basically got your kick playing, and the side chain the dip is much longer than the length of the kick. And so it makes it so that there's like this empty space between the kick and when the bass comes in. And so in some genres, like sometimes in future bass, that can be a desirable effect, depending on what they're trying to do. In this one, I would try and make it a bit tighter. I mean, look, the song's obviously done and it's released. I'm just trying to give you advice for next time. I would try and dial in that kick and bass a little bit more so that as soon as the kick is gone, the bass comes in after it, so that it's not as long of a pause whenever the duck happens. I think that kind of distracts and detracts from the quality of the song. Next, I would say that your breakdowns are a little basic. I think that you've got, again, it's kind of what I was saying before, your piano is a little bit unsurprising, a little predictable on when the chords play and that kind of thing. And I think overall the track is a bit muddy. For example, when you've got the bass and the piano and stuff happening, there's just a lot of low mid frequency stuff happening and overlapping. So I think that could be cleaner. And then there are parts where I can't really hear the vocal, like over here. So when you have a big lead sound like that, that lead is playing a lot in the same part of the frequency spectrum as your vocal is. So you have to combat that. If you play them both at full volume at the same time, you're not gonna be able to hear either one fully. So in this case, typically your lead vocal needs to be your number one priority in the song. Nothing can overlap it otherwise, because that needs to be your focus if you have a vocal based song. So what you need to do here is one of a few things. You either, what I showed, I think last week, was something called track spacer that I really like, where you can basically route the lead to affect the vocal, the vocal to affect the lead, so that whenever the vocal is playing, it dips out only the frequencies that are taken up by the vocal in the lead. So like when the vocal's not playing, it plays the lead in its normal way. But when the vocal is playing, the lead cuts out a portion of the frequency spectrum so that the vocal can sit nicely on top of it. So that's one way to do it. Another way would be to just EQ, or use a dynamic EQ for that part, and just cut out some of those frequencies that are conflicting. The problem with that I don't really like is that you maybe don't want to cut out those frequencies if the vocal's not playing. So that's why I prefer the method of using something like track spacer, where it only makes the difference whenever the vocal's playing. So I would do that. I mean, you just need a good piece of advice for all of you is, if you have a song with vocals, listen through, and if there is any part where you cannot hear or understand the vocal, fix it. Like, that needs to be fixed. That's a huge number one easy thing to fix that needs to happen. For this part, you just need to be able to hear the vocal.
Sometimes it's hard, sometimes we get
It's not clear enough. So those would be my main things. The other thing for that lead, yes, you've got a lot of reverb on it. It sounds good. I would want that to be thicker and wider. Right now, yes, it's kind of wide with that reverb, but it sounds a little bit narrow for a song like this, which is supposed to be like that festival progressive house sound. I would make it wider, maybe some chorus. I would probably layer it, make it thicker. It sounds like it doesn't have enough low end, not low end, but like some middle frequency portion of the sound, so that it just sounds bigger and thicker and heavier. So those would be my main things for this one, but nice job. Just keep getting better. You're on the right track for sure. It's a really good song. So okay, guys, so that's going to be all for today. Thank you all for joining me today. As always, thanks for your patience when I run into issues, but Anyway, I hope this was helpful. Both the production session, maybe you're already really good at builds, but there's something in there you hadn't thought of before. I mean, there's hopefully always a little bit of something you can take out of it. And then for the track feedback, if I didn't get to you, I'm sorry, but I hope that you still learned something from the feedback I gave to other people, and I'll try to get to you next time. But for today, I'm going to sign off. This has been Josh with WA Production, and I'm looking forward to continuing to be back every week on Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks so much, and I will see you next